Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Hi,
Hey, man, how are you? Good to see you again.
nice to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing so well, dude. I appreciate you fitting me into your schedule. I'm assuming you got a lot going on, so this is really I absolutely love the show, so I appreciate it, man.
Thanks. Yeah, well, it's nice, kind of full circle for us in a way, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I can't even imagine.
Weirdly.
Well, speaking of that, before we get started on the interview, I kind of wanted to just show you where I'm talking to you from. So I'm talking to you from Chicago. I'm in my apartment right now, but in a weird way, I'm also talking to you from the set of Station 11 because I actually
That's
live
strange.
here in Lake Point Tower, and I'm you probably don't remember this, but I actually ran into you while
No, I
you were
remember.
filming.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember.
when
Yeah,
I believe it was the scene where the woman was trying to get in the elevator with you guys, and you guys wouldn't let her get in the elevator. I think that's the scene you guys having the memories
yeah,
of what you were filming, and then having seen the final show. That's kind of what around the place I remember running into you at.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's that was nearly 2 years ago now.
Yeah,
Weirdly.
I know, which is crazy. So I actually wanted to start out in that way since I am talking to you from Chicago in Lake Point Tower. I'm just sort of curious in what way the city of Chicago is in a way a character in the story, and you have filmed all over the world, and how this city compares to other places you filmed around the world.
I love Chicago, and one of the sadnesses of the way, obviously, that it all panned out in the end was that we didn't go back and spend more time there in the summer, because I'm sure it's maybe just a little nicer in the summer because it was pretty brutal. January 2 years ago when we were shooting there, but I really loved it, and yeah, it is a character in a way. It's sort of the central hub that brings all these characters together in our show, and so it was nice for me personally to have spent some time there, um, because it's obviously where Jeevan is from, and so to have some of that context and get to know the different areas of Chicago, and how the city operates was really great.
I mean, the scene where the plane crashes into Navy Pier is, I mean, that's an image that once you see it, you can't shake that. It's honestly, it's a horrifying image, but it was unbelievable in the show. I'm really curious. Obviously, you guys were filming before COVID took over the news in 2020. How long did it take for you to realize sort of the similarities between what you guys were filming and then slowly what was happening in real life? Because it wasn't just like a switch that was turned on. It was kind of a slow snowball of like a news effect.
Yeah, I think the first case was actually in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. It was like on the last 2 days that I was there. And then I went home, and obviously it just escalated over the next month. And obviously it was strange. I guess there was potentially on some level a denial for me of kind of going, no, that's too strange. It's almost too strange to comprehend that this thing I've just been making is now coming to life in some strange way. But then, of course, the paths diverged, and our show is very much about a worst case scenario when it comes to a pandemic, and though of course our pandemic is very much that for a lot of people. It's in terms of humanity and the population, it's not quite as deadly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know that you guys, you mentioned not being able to come back to Chicago. You filmed a lot of the first episode here before having to take that break because of COVID. So I'm sort of curious, when you go back and rewatch the series as a whole, how does episode one hit you differently than the rest of the series?
Yeah, for me, it's almost a separate thing in my mind. It's this holy period of 6 weeks at the beginning of 2020 where we were just embarking on this journey, and it was all ahead of us, and we were so excited, and now I think, because obviously I was imagining going back to Chicago, and the conversations I was having with Patrick and Hero and various other people about what the show was going to be and how that summer was going to play out. And now in my head, I've got this alternative universe, where the pandemic didn't happen, and we did get to go back, and we spent a summer in Chicago, and so episode one is very separate to me in a lot of ways, and in a way it's separate from the show as well. It sets everything up, and then the show in a way begins in earnest as soon as we latch onto Mackenzie's Kirsten at the beginning of episode two, and she sort of carries us through.
A friend of mine asked me this question recently, and I thought it was such a fascinating question that I would love to ask you. Do you remember the moment at the beginning of COVID when you realized that the world was changing?
Yeah, I think it was. Uh, I went to a rock concert in London. This band, a Canadian band that I really like called Half Moon Run. They were playing in London, and that a couple of hours before I went to that was the first sort of address that our Prime Minister gave about, this thing is real and it's getting more serious, so you need to be a bit careful. And I remember I had seats, but obviously there were a lot of people standing at this gig. And I remember just watching these people crammed together at this gig and just kind of going, that image is scaring me now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Beforehand, it was just people at a concert, whatever. But I remember seeing them all from my seated position, seeing all these people. I suppose for me, that is very much my first sort of indicator of feeling differently about something in a new context.
For sure. It's even weird when you watch a movie these days, when you see someone hug or shake hands, there's a part of me that kind of goes like, oh no, don't do, just because that's our natural reaction these days. Obviously there's a plot in the series that features this traveling symphony of actors who keep moving, who keep surviving so that they can perform Shakespeare. So I'm curious, during lockdown, who was the artist, the actor, the writer, the director, the singer who kept you going? Like, what was the piece of art that kind of kept you surviving?
Man, I'd say Succession. I discovered Succession over lockdown. A lot of people have been telling me to watch it, and I took the opportunity and watched the first 2 seasons and was just blown away by the originality of it and just how fantastic it was as a show. That balance between drama and comedy, which is a world I love to operate in myself, and yeah, I mean, everyone's admitting now the 3rd season is just sort of outdone the first 2 as well. So, yeah, really amazed by that. And
I would love to see you on that show, by the way. I would love to see you with that.
I'd love to see me on that show. Well, I've worked with Adam McKay now, so let's see.
Yeah, exactly. yeah, I was saying, you can just pick up the phone, man. You're fantastic and don't look up. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm sort of curious. Obviously, so much has changed since when you heard action for the first time in episode 1 versus where we're at today. What is the biggest difference between who you are as a person when you heard action on the first episode versus where, us premiering the show today?
I suppose in a way, I won't ever take action for granted ever again. I mean, I really realized how lucky I am to do this for a living. I've always been aware of that to some degree, but when it really came under threat for everyone, and so many people did lose their jobs and are still struggling to find a way back. When I went back again, and everyone was making such an amazing effort to keep everyone safe and stick to the protocols and everything, it was really amazing for me. And I kind of realized that you don't ever make anything on your own, that everyone's supporting each other, and B, I can't ever take this job for granted, and just how finely balanced everything is.
I'll cut you loose on this one. You get to play a character over multiple episodes and flesh him out and learn about him over the course of an entire limited series, something you don't get to do in a movie where you really only have 2 hours to get to know someone. So of all the cinematic characters you've played, which one do you wish you had this kind of time with to maybe get to know him over 8 or 10 episodes?
Really good question. Gosh, that's a really, really good question. And now I'm blanking on. Well, I guess I'd have to go for Mahir in Tenet, just because of the tapestry of that world, and I just kind of wonder, just how detailed and expansive that could get, So, yeah, that's the whole thing. I wonder if that'll ever even happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, in true Tenet fashion, you could go backwards with his story. You could go forwards with his. Like, I want to know who he is. I want to know where he's going. I want to know where he came from. That was actually my #1 film of the year. The year that I was going to say last year, but 2 years ago, the year that it came out. That movie's a masterpiece. As was yesterday, which is the first time that you and I ever got to chat. That's one of my all-time favorite junkets, man. That was such a cool junket. But dude, seriously, this series is absolutely incredible. I'm telling everyone I know about it, and the good people at Warner and HBO Max were kind enough to set this interview up for me. So, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me, because it's just phenomenal work. Good to see you. Yeah. Next time, dude. Next time that you're in my building, man, knock on my door. I'm right over here. Let me know.
Yeah, I will do. Definitely.
All right, man. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Right,
thanks.
Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.